Hey folks, welcome back once again to Indaba Africa. This is Chris coming to you on Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel live from Pennsylvania. I hope that you're having a good day wherever you find yourself around the world. We're going to get started here in just a moment with my special featured guest today, Jacob Ramaekers, who is from Omaha, Nebraska. He is a outdoor guide and a Catholic missionary in Western Wyoming, a graduate of Wyoming Catholic College. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that. Now, to let you in on a little secret here, he's also the guy that was one of our guides when I was out there in Wyoming for the Wyoming Catholic College trip for Special Operations Force veterans. He was out there with us, and the guy is full of energy, does a brilliant job. He was quite the helpful guide out there, great conversation. And, when you're hiking around trying to sort out what's going on, it was nice to have him along. And in just a moment, I'm going to bring him in here, but he's going to talk a little bit about his experiences as a guide as well. Okay, it sounds like I just double checking my volumes there, folks. Good. So on my mobile before I bring him in. Okay, it looks like we're setting pretty good there. So with that, I'm going to bring Jacob in now. So Jacob, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chris.
Hey, it's a real pleasure to have you here. I see you got your COR hat on. That's Catholic Outdoor Renewal, is it not?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right, so let's get started right away. Yeah, folks are saying the volume is good. I always get nervous because sometimes I pay Zoom for the service, but sometimes the service isn't up to par. But looks like we're good for today. Okay, so Jacob, you grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I was born and raised there. I lived in two houses my whole life, and then moved out to Wyoming, and now I kind of consider Lander, Wyoming my home. But yep. Yeah.
So what's just because I'm sure there's not a lot of our viewers that are from Nebraska on the channel right now. I have a lot of overseas viewers and a fair number here in the States. But for those who outside the U.S., I know what Nebraska's like. I've been to Omaha many times, but give us a little feel for what it was like growing up in Omaha.
Yeah. So just imagine like endless cornfields for like as far as the eye can see. I grew up in the plains, and it's very different from the mountains of Wyoming. Growing up in Nebraska, it was, we had to make our own fun for sure, just to give you a little perspective. And so I grew up doing fishing, hunting, camping, and that was kind of like my outdoor experience in Nebraska. And beautiful place though. I love the people in Nebraska, and huge Catholic community in Nebraska. But yeah, they say that the Nebraska people are nice. So
okay, all right.
But the state slogan for Nebraska, the state tourism slogan is "It's not for everyone," but it's for me. I loved it. I loved growing up there. Yeah.
Well, I'd have to say that the state of Nebraska, that's pretty good and reasonable, fair warning to folks. Give them a heads up that not trying to hoodwink anybody. Listen, it's not for everybody. I like that. That's pretty cool.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. So you described Nebraska, cornfields as far as the eye can see. Yeah, I know. I've lived there. It's called Iowa. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The two kind of meld together.
Yeah, same sort of thing. Yeah, but good folks out there. But I think a lot of people will be surprised, as I am kind of, to hear that there's a lot of Catholics in Nebraska. I mean, when you think of the Plain States, and particularly north of there, when you get up into the Dakotas and Minnesota and places like that, and Iowa, lots of Lutherans and lots of Scandinavians. So I'm a little surprised to find out there's a lot of Catholics in Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, even in Omaha itself, you drive two miles in any direction, you'll find a Catholic parish. So a really big community, 7 Catholic high schools in Omaha itself. So Omaha is definitely a hot spot for sure. And very family oriented. Like my entire family is basically my entire family is living in Nebraska, extended family and immediate family. So, yep.
Well, I guess that answers the question. So it's fair to assume that you grew up Catholic.
I did indeed. Yep.
All right. Well,
which definitely led into coming out to Wyoming Catholic College and doing the mission work that I am now. Yeah.
So what's that like? I mean, I think very many people are familiar with Wyoming Catholic College. It's a relatively new school out there in Lander, Wyoming. It started around 2007. I think it had its first graduating class around 2011. And so you just graduated from there recently. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I just graduated in 2020. So just a little snapshot of what Wyoming Catholic College is like. So about 180 students. and it's really small. And actually, my decision to go to the college was a little bit like spur of the moment. I wouldn't say it was uneducated, but definitely different from the people that I was surrounded with. So at the time that I decided to go, it was unaccredited, very small liberal arts school. I went to like a science, technology, engineering, math school, and so going into liberal arts was a step into the unknown, I guess. But we focused on forming the whole person, mind, body, and spirit, and so I went through an education of the great books. We never read textbooks. We read like original texts from original philosophy. We read Homer. We read Plato, Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas. So a lot of older texts, and kind of working our way up chronologically through all those things. And then we have our outdoor program, which is another component of the college. But I could definitely get into that a lot further. And but yeah, that's kind of a basic overview of Wyoming Catholic College, liberal arts college. Everybody gets an undergraduate degree in liberal arts. It's a 4-year degree. So I'm very grateful that I got that opportunity.
Well, it sounds like you took a bit of a risk when you first went there. You mentioned the school wasn't accredited yet. So I guess it's good news they got accredited by the time you graduated.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I had an English teacher in my high school, and I told him, like, look, I'm thinking about going to this little college, 180 students. And he pulled me aside and like genuinely just asked, like, are you sure about this decision? And he was just concerned for me. But, regardless, like the education was phenomenal. And, compared to what I would have gotten at like a big, university or 4-year college, definitely what I needed. Yeah.
Well, I would have to say this. I suspect that unlike I went to Ohio University, which was about 16,000 students at the time in Athens, Ohio. And we have this rivalry. I don't really think it's much of a rivalry because I think their primary focus up there in Columbus is animal husbandry, whereas we actually study real education. But the Ohio State University in their Columbus, with 80,000 students on campus, it's insane. You get lost in classes of 400 or 500 freshmen in a survey class. I don't think that must have been a problem at Wyoming Catholic College. I suspect you had some pretty small classes with close on-hand attention from your instructors.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I ever had a class bigger than 25 students. And basically all of the classes we do, with a few exceptions, are seminar style. So like we're sitting in a circle and we have a professor at one side of the circle, and we're just basically just debriefing like what we read. And coming up with questions and bouncing ideas off of each other, and just having a Socratic dialogue about the readings that we're doing. So it's a good opportunity to learn when you have to like come forth with the arguments and say, this is what I saw the argument as. And, you have another person that comes and disagrees with you. So it just leads to a lot of good dialogue and learning, for sure. Yeah.
Well, Jacob, but I have to say this is that your experience was very different than mine as an undergraduate. Of course, I went to, as an undergraduate, back before they invented electricity and had roads and stuff like that. It's been a few years, but when I was an undergraduate, we didn't have any classes where the Socratic method was practiced. I didn't become familiar with that until I became a postgraduate student, where it's very applicable there. I would have to say that your experience, I'm guessing, would prepare you maybe better than my experience as an undergraduate for thinking critically and for analyzing things and defending your position. It seems to me like that introducing the Socratic approach at a smaller school like that might have been very beneficial to you. Do you think it helped you become a better critical thinker?
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because the classes that we go through, we don't necessarily get readings that I'm not going to read something all the time, with a few exceptions, but most of the time I'll get a reading and I'll read through it. And afterwards, I'll go to class, and the conclusions of whatever we read, I'm speaking specifically to more of the philosophy side of the conclusions that people can draw from these readings could be wildly different. So we were talking my last semester about evolution. And we would do a reading about here are the arguments for or against evolution. And one class, I would come to one session and be like, holy cow, evolution must be true. And then we talk about all these these exceptions or these things that don't seem plausible, right? And then the next session I come to class and I'm like, God, I totally changed my mind. And we have to think through like every single premise of the argument and really come up with like, all right, what's the probability of this? What's the probability of that? Like, how are these arguments opposed? Is there a logical progression in the arguments? And so, and that extends further into paper writing. Like we're writing papers and we have to make a succinct argument or our professors just nail us, right? Yeah.
Well, let me ask this question because I've looked at the curriculum, but I haven't looked that closely. Obviously, in some of these conversations, based on the literature and the great books that you're reading, political discourse must be part of that. But is American government and in different political systems or maybe international political theory, does that somehow play a role in your undergraduate experience, or is that outside of it?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say it's a major part of the education. But we stick with the idea that history repeats itself, right? So we kind of work up through, as far as political theory, political philosophy goes. We worked up through reading Thucydides, Herodotus, talking about politics, like with the ancient Greeks, for example, and working our way all the way up to what led to the foundations of America. Reading Alexis de Tocqueville. And reading even like Aristotle's Politics. Yeah, exactly. And we didn't read all of de Tocqueville's Democracy in America, but we would read snippets and talk about like how this is specifically related to not only like the foundation of America, but what we're seeing today, right? Reading speeches by Abraham Lincoln about defending the Constitution. And but it was definitely an argument from first principles of like, what is the politic? What is the city? What is man's political end? Like, what is man's spiritual end? What is the end of being in community and being in a city? So, yeah.
So I rarely get a chance to do this, Jacob, so I'm going to indulge myself if you don't mind here. I mean, it's not often that I get a chance to talk to somebody in their early 20s about Thucydides and the Peloponnesian War. So let me ask you this. Part of my favorite part of reading that experience was the Melian dialogue, and how the strong will do what they like and the weak must suffer what they must. Talk about morality lesson there. That was kind of interesting for me. Did you have a favorite part of Thucydides or did the Melian dialogue strike any chord with you?
I'll be honest. Thucydides was close to 4 years ago, so I do not remember much of Thucydides right now. I need to go back.
I put you on the spot there. That wasn't fair.
I know.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's. To be fair, I just had Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on my show last week, and he is the renowned, foremost expert on that. So I also asked him a question, but I asked about the so-called Thucydides trap. So I won't put you on the spot there. But thanks for sharing that. So let me ask you this question about the experience. Was it all you hoped it would be, and do you feel prepared from an undergraduate level to go forward in the world now?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's definitely a little bit of nervousness. I don't know. People talk about like, oh, now you have your undergraduate degree and now you're prepared to go into the world. But it actually has this effect on us, on graduates, where part of me doesn't feel prepared. Part of me feels like I need, if I don't continue studying and continue learning the rest of my life, then like it was all a waste. Like if I felt at the end of this 4 years that I knew everything, then where would I be, right? So it kind of instilled this process of continual learning and this mentality of continual learning and continual reading, studying, that sort of thing. So, I just working away from the great books. I recently started reading the book Benedict Option, talking about how our view, our metaphysical view of the world has changed throughout like the scientific revolution, for example, and kind of applying like what I've learned in Aristotle's Politics to this application, this modern application. And that's the kinds of things that I want to continue doing. But those critical thinking skills are definitely things that I feel very prepared to do and very prepared to like sit down and dialogue with an author. very seriously and not coming in with any preconceptions or So I feel prepared, but I feel like I need to read more,
No,
And
I got you. That's actually a good point. And you find yourself at a transition point in life, which all of us do. We finish our undergraduate studies. Some go immediately on to postgraduate, which I don't think that's the wisest idea. I think that getting some life experience and work experience is better. But I mean, a lot of people do it. But I did my postgraduate experience later after I learned a little more about life. But this is an inflection point or a transition point for you, and it can be a little scary. Suddenly. I don't know your personal circumstances, whether parents were there to help pay the bills or you had to wash dishes in school or something like that and bus tables. But whatever the case is, that even whatever circumstance you had, whether you had the support of the parents or you were on your own, whatever the case, or a mix of the two, you're really on your own now. It's time for adulting, and there's no safety blanket there, and you just can't fall back into a net. So you just gotta get out there and get busy and make your way in the world and find yourself. Is that kind of how you feel about at the moment? Does it encapsulate it?
Yeah, absolutely. Being that I come from a very broad education, there's, it definitely brings in a couple like ways that people can react. Like I have friends who they graduated WCC and they were very involved in like the humanities program, were very involved in the sciences, and kind of like picking their niche. And so a few people from my class are going off to graduate school, which is great. But then other people are kind of left in limbo of like, I have a liberal arts degree and people say I can do anything that I want. And they're like, what does anything I want look like? Right. And so we have people going off to law school. We have a couple people from my class who are doing prerequisites for medical school. And so just a very, very broad range. But yeah, I do feel like I have to kind of make my own way. And in a certain sense, like you talked about the safety net of like you don't have something to just fall back on. You have to adult, right? I do feel like I was well prepared for what I'm doing now, for sure. I mean, working for COR Expeditions is directly transferring the skills that I learned in the outdoor program at the college to like what I'm doing for my job. But for other people, that's not necessarily the case unless they're going into like teaching or graduate school or more classes. Yeah.
Well, you've made a good segue there, Jacob, and I'll get to it in just a second. But before we get to the segue, I want to bring a couple comments in from the chat. Some of the nice things saying here. But sure. Penny Williams says she finds it's weird that our younger kids are more intelligent than ourselves. Well, Penny, I would say that not all of them are. Maybe Jacob's one of them, but not all of them are. Some of them are out burning things and looting things and tearing up streets in South Africa and here in the U.S. So I wouldn't say all of them are wiser, but certainly some of them are. And then Olaf says that, who's in Denmark, says that education comes through the youth. Wisdom comes with age. Yeah, but some people who are young can develop wisdom pretty quickly. They latch onto it. I'd say Jacob's a guy that's on the right track to figure out wisdom. You and I spoke you're welcome. You and I spoke. Did you lose your mic? Lost your earpiece. You and I spoke quite a bit during that trek, didn't we? We spoke a lot. I think I got to know you a little bit, and you seem like a pretty smart young guy.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So let's see what else. In the chat here, there was a couple of things, but mostly it's all people saying very complimentary things, Jacob. I think they're enjoying it so far. But here, let's go to the segue. So the segue was you brought up the talk about you're doing now, which you're well prepared for what you're doing now. But you mentioned something earlier, and this is part, to go back to the Wyoming Catholic College experience. Part of that experience, now, I understood when I became familiar with the school because I know Joe Stong, who's in fundraising for the school out there. We know each other through LinkedIn and, of course, through this experience. But I know Joe, and I asked him about the school when I first met him online a couple years ago, and we were talking about it. And I understood that part of the curriculum, part of the plan for Wyoming Catholic College was to take students out into the wilderness. And what I got from that, and let me know if I got it wrong, but the idea is kind of to develop as a team, develop a cohort, mature, but also to bring an element of spirituality into that where people can commune and share with each other out in nature, away from distractions. And what you get from that as a side benefit, among many other things, is that those who do this they have friendships that develop from the very first days of their college experience and continue through and maybe through the rest of their life, perhaps. But what I was surprised to find out, Jacob, is I thought this was like, 3 or 4 days over a weekend when you start the freshman year. But I found out that the students go out for 21 days. Oh, my goodness. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So the idea behind the 21-day trip is that, so there's two books. There's the great books, and like the way we see it, like Scripture is one of the great books, and it's God's book. But nature and like the wilderness, untainted wilderness, is God's first book of his unwritten book, right? Obviously created, but so the idea is that we're going out into the wilderness to have an experience with God's first book, and the fruits have been, there's so many different facets to this trip. And one of the ideas is like, how can I engage with poetry, for example, without having a poetic experience myself? Like, we talk about going into war, we talk about battles, we talk about this, that, and the other thing. But I need to have like a tangible experience of these things. And so the 21-day trip is kind of just an intense freshman orientation. That's the way that some people look at it. Now, Dr. Tom Zimmer he spoke at a conference with tons and tons of other universities that have freshman orientations. And just by the ratings of like what our freshman orientation does to our freshmen, our 21-day trip was put basically at the top, over and above all the Ivy League schools. And so we go out and we do a 21-day backpacking trip, either in the Wind River Range or the Absaroka Range, kind of northwest or northeast of Jackson, Wyoming. And so it's kind of a leadership expedition. Just to give you like a little bit of background, what we do is it's all student led. So me as a student, I led the freshman trip 2 times as a student, and then another time after, just this past summer. So we're actually engaging with the students and like bringing them into like what, the outdoor program and into the community. But usually it's a group of about 10 to 12 people. We separate them out. So usually the women's groups go to the Wind River Range, the men's groups go to the Absaroka Range. And the idea is we want them to initiate leadership. We want them to have an experience of hardship, and they come in with this expectation. So we're hiking between 5 to 7 miles a day. The first day, us as like instructors will show them like, hey, this is how you use a map, like point out different things, like this matches up with this on the topo map. And we give them an idea of what a day looks like backpacking. And then literally the second day, we take the maps and we hand them to a pair of freshmen who are the leaders of the day, the LODs as we call it. And we say, all right, get us from point A to point B. And we're not going to say anything. Like, this is your opportunity to learn, experiential learning, right? Like the best way to learn. And so for 3 weeks, we do this, and we just rotate them through, and they have an experience of leadership. And then by the third week, so we do 2 weeks with our freshmen. And then by the third week, we do what's called independent travel, where we just tell them like, this is your route for the week, and we're not going to be with you. Like, you're not going to see us for the next week. And so it's kind of a Lord of the Flies situation, right? Where we send them out.
I was about to say that, Lord of the Flies. I was just about to say that, Lord of the Flies. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Right. But we like, one of the big goals of COR is to actually let people have an experience of beauty and wonder. And so just to go into like the framework, we have our LOD days. We have 4 pillars: beauty and wonder, community, leadership, and identity, which are all things that are just augmented and like very, very much known through a wilderness experience. Like, you're put into the wilderness with 10 guys for 3 weeks. You're gonna grow in community. You're gonna grow in leadership. So obviously, like, throughout that time, we have ample opportunity for prayer, for mass. Every single day is like this structure of debriefing the day. Like, we don't just do an experience and then cut it. Like, we actually talk about our experience, and that's where a lot of our learning comes from. So, some wild adventures have come out of the 21-day trip. like the freshmen do get lost. Like when we put them out on independent travel and we say it's up to them, like we aren't there as a safety net anymore. They can get lost and they have to find their way back and learn how to use the maps, and they don't do it again, right? So
yeah. Well, the learning curve is steep once you've been lost in the woods. You learn quickly.
Yeah, definitely. So higher consequences, I'm not going to learn how to lead somebody if I can always, like, if we're not carrying our food on our back. Like, we're carrying our food on our back, and if you lose that food, if a bear gets it, if an animal gets it, if you use it up too quickly, like, you're just not going to eat for the last 2 days before you re-ration.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it's real. And they say that you grow 3 years over the 21 days, over that 21-day trip, like mature 3 years. And I really do see that with our freshmen. And I've seen a lot of success stories and just like cultivation, spiritually, leadership wise, and just see these guys bond together. So yeah. And then that's the initial like outdoor program orientation. And then afterwards we have to do we get to do week trips all throughout the year. So do trips for just all these different activities. So you get to go on a week-long canyoneering trip, on a week-long climbing trip, mountain biking, rafting, kayaking, canoeing, like pretty much anything and everything we get to do. And that's like the 21-day trip is just the beginning of our outdoor program. Yep.
Well, let me get some of the comments in here. One of the things quickly is Viking Boar has mentioned, I should let you know, Jacob, that on my streams, I traditionally wear a rugby jersey or sweatshirt, but usually a rugby jersey. I have like 80 rugby jerseys from all over the world. But today I'm not wearing a rugby jersey,
Nice.
But that's in recognition of the fact that we're talking outdoors. If you remember during the survivalist stream with the Citizen Guardian, I also didn't wear a rugby jersey today. So I'm wearing an LL Bean outdoor shirt today with the fishing pockets right here. So I do my little modeling here, but surprise, surprise, I am wearing a rugby shirt. It's underneath of this shirt right there. This is from the Springboks in DC a couple years ago. So there is a rugby jersey on, not to disappoint my my followers and my subscribers. I am wearing a rugby jersey. But let me get to some of the comments here, Jacob, very quickly from the chat. I pulled up a few. So Devald Kurtzia says that, yep, all the books in the world cannot teach you like life itself. Interesting comment. And then this is this one here. This is you may not understand this one, Jacob, but I'll share it with you. The ruling party in South Africa has been lowering the educational standards because students weren't passing. So instead of improving education, they continually over the last decade have lowered the passing marks from 70 down to 50. And now, if you get 30% on your exams, you pass. Yeah, I see that strange look on your face. Yeah, I mean, people find this out there. So what Ronald Gans said is that I'm sure that his pass requirement was a lot higher than 30%. I'm guessing that you had to have higher marks than 30% to graduate is what she was saying. And then
yeah, actually, that's an interesting point. Yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because if you fail a class at Wyoming Catholic College, we all take the same courses. If you fail a single class, then you have to redo the entire year, like one class.
What?
You don't have to like repeat that class.
Are
Seriously.
you serious?
Yeah.
One class?
Yeah, because we're all taking the same courses, right? Yeah. And so we're all have the same professors, same everything. So if I fail that one class, there's no opportunity with the scheduling to go back the next year and like just add that class on, because you're not with your class. You literally have to go through everything. So the bar is high.
So you're like a cohort. You guys start as a cohort. And I guess that's part of building this team and this relationship, is because you do all this outdoor stuff together. Well, that's fascinating. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to fail a class if I ever go to Wyoming Catholic College, because I'm not starting over. That's too much. Viking Boar asked me, he says, you always have something up your sleeve, because I had the rugby shirt underneath. He said, do you like khaki clothing? Actually, I love khaki clothing. I was in the Army. Come on, Viking Boar. Come on. Anyway, but so let me just interrupt here for a second. I do a little bit of housekeeping. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Chris Wide Africa on the Indaba Africa channel here on YouTube. I'm Chris in Central Pennsylvania, retired U.S. Army Colonel, 36 and a half years service for our country, 34 of that active duty. and served all over the world. And one of the places I've been and one of the places I wanted to call home was Wyoming. My guest today, my special feature guest, is Jacob Ramaekers from Omaha, Nebraska, but he lives out there in Wyoming, in Lander, which is where Wyoming Catholic College is located at. And he's an outdoor guide. So it's an apropos moment, I think, now to shift to what people tuned in to hear about, Jacob. I mean, we love hearing about your background. This is a fascinating story about Wyoming Catholic College, but you're an outdoor guide and a Catholic missionary. And some people probably scratch their head. I mean, okay, outdoor guide, I got that. That's Tim the Tool Man, Outdoor World, that sort of thing. I just mixed two shows there. But anyway, people get hiking, LLBing, they get all that stuff, Columbia. We get it, mountain climbing, camping, we got that. But what does this missionary thing have to do with this? I don't follow. By the way, before you answer that question, I'm going to join you in solidarity with my COR cap and just put it on for a couple minutes. There you go. Got my own brand new COR cap there.
Yep. So the vision of COR Expeditions was started out of Wyoming Catholic College. Just a little bit of background on COR Expeditions specifically. So we're still connected. So like I'm staff of the college technically. And it started because other organizations saw like the 21-day trip and the outdoor trips we do. And certain seminaries started coming to us and said, we want to do this for our seminarians. We want to do this, like you name it. We have colleges coming to us and saying, we want to do this as a spring break trip. We want to be a part of this. And so we started extending that vision and like that opportunity for other organizations. Now, the tricky part about working in the outdoors and the reason that we are missionaries is so we want to bring people into the wilderness to experience Jesus through the wilderness in the things that I've mentioned. Beauty and wonder, like actually having experience with something amazing, and like listening to Christ in that still small voice and having that quiet time and being free from distractions. Like people come on our trips and we say, all right, here's a bin for your phones. Put your phone in this and you're not going to see it for a week, right? Or you're not going to have service for a week. So it doesn't matter. So like the freedom from distraction is huge. And also just like, growing in leadership and growing in all these things. But the reason that we are missionaries and the reason that we have to fundraise and that it's not just like a guide position is just to give you some perspective. So, there are other organizations that do like similar things to what we're doing. They take expeditions out for 1, 2, 3 weeks at a time. Now the National Outdoor Leadership School, and they're great. Like the National Outdoor Leadership School does awesome things, but they have to charge for their guides. So a 2-week trip with the National Outdoor Leadership School, just to give an example, is about $3,800. And that doesn't include airfare. Whereas with COR Expeditions, a trip like that would cost like $1,200 per person. Because like I fundraise for myself and my own salary, and so do all the other missionaries, and so does COR itself with like, the big COR fund, right? So all people are paying for is the food, the gas, and the and like permits, and just like very basic things that we need to get these trips out the door. So the idea is that we want to get as many people out into the backcountry as possible. Like it's not accessible, right? Like your random college student's not going to be able to pay $4,000 to go out for a 2-week trip. And so we want to get as many people into the backcountry as possible to have this experience. And so like that's our ministry and that's our mission, is to get as many people out as possible. Because if I'm a college student at University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and I have the decision to make between going and partying in Cancun for a week, and it's going to cost me $1,000, right? With like airfare and like whatever I'm drinking and all this stuff, hotels, it's going to cost me $1,000 to do that. Whereas like I can pay $600 and go get on a spring break trip, rock climbing and like doing some rad stuff. Like, I mean, it's just an easier decision, and we're going to talk about Jesus while we're doing it. So it's awesome.
Well, that was the part I was going to ask you about. I mean, so from a missionary standpoint, it's not proselytizing. You're not going out trying to recruit people to the Catholic Church or to the Christian faith, but you're communing and talking about Jesus and about and God and things. Yes, did I get that right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And we do have open enrollment trips where people are coming because they're curious, whether it be about the faith, about the wilderness, or about how the two relate to each other. And so, yeah, I mean, we do get that opportunity to evangelize, but really, we want people to be able to deepen their faith, and we want people to be able to bond with each other. And like, people in Catholic organizations and a lot of organizations say like, we're making leaders for tomorrow, but like, how do they do that? Right? Like, how are they making leaders? And for us, like we're saying, we are trying to create and give people tools for leadership within the church or within whatever their like organization is. And so we're giving them this opportunity. We're saying, all right, now you have real consequences. Like, you don't get us from point A to point B. We're going to hurt, and we're going to get angry at each other. And yeah, so leadership is definitely a part of it. Yeah.
Well, and also the leadership piece you talk about there, people forming the bonds of leadership and learning how to step up. It was interesting. I think some people had a question, but you kind of answered it. And while before you answered it, Jeff said he was joking, kind of cheekily said that as far as finding their way out there in the wilderness, he said, just use Google Maps, problem solved. But you've not been to the Wind River Range, Jeff. I know you were joking, but I've been out there. And if you leave your mobile on, even if they didn't take it away from you, if COR didn't take your mobile away, finding a signal is just going to drain your battery, because most of that mountain range is up over 10,000 feet or higher, and the signal just doesn't get through. So you answer the question. So, I mean, you take away their mobiles, which is probably catastrophic for people under the age of 20. They don't know what to do with themselves. Well, what do I do now? What do I do now? No, but you take away their mobiles. I'm going to guess that you don't allow them to carry GPS units. They just have maps.
Right. Yeah, just paper maps. Yep.
That's what I like. Hard, old school. The compass, obviously, they can have a compass, a lens-added compass, but old school orienteering. That's my days of orienteering. I love that stuff. Excellent. Well, hey, so that's that, and that you've turned that into what's a career now. We'll talk a little bit about your career, but first, I'm kind of eager to talk about our experience out there. So this was, I think, a little different for COR and for Wyoming Catholic College. Joe Stong was the advocate for putting this program together, and the school let him do it. And just so people understand, what it was for Special Operations Forces veterans. So the idea was to take Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Army Rangers, and folks like that, and take them out to give them a chance to have a spiritual experience in the wild with guides. And in addition to that, it was also about helping make the transition from uniform to civilian life. So for you, Jacob, was this a very different sort of group than what you've had in the past? I'm going to guess probably it was a lot older than your average group for starters. And beyond that, was it interesting or different to have all these, a lot of combat veterans with a lot of combat experience, people who've been responsible for billions of dollars and thousands of lives? What was that like for you? Did you get anything out of the experience yourself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I talked about the guys on the trips with family and friends for like a week straight afterwards, like everybody I ran into. No, it was so cool to have a group of guys, first of all, that's not soft. Like it's so awesome to just see you guys like getting after it. And we're like stepping over trees, right? And like trying to bushwhack, and you guys were just like ready to do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, right. And it was awesome to see that, but also just the for me, like the mentorship of being able to spend a week with a bunch of retired special operation forces guys. And and granted, like, yes, the group is definitely older than what we're used to, although we do trips with all ages, right? We do a lot of trips with dads, and but yeah, no, I think it was cool to see that. And like Eric came up to me when I was going to give a pooping in the woods talk, and he's like, look, you don't, like, they all know how to do that. It's like, oh goodness. Yeah, no, but it was awesome to just see like your guys' drive, first of all, to transfer and transition into civilian life. But also seeing how your work in the military has played a direct role in how you approach life, how you approach family, faith, friendships, that sort of thing. Like that was really cool, and seeing the tribe grow is awesome. But yeah.
Well, there was, yeah, I actually like that phrase you just used there, seeing the tribe grow. We actually, I guess, in some respects, were a tribe that week, all of us, including the guides. It was quite an interesting shared experience, I'd have to say. And Jeff said here that he seems like a cool guide. He was, Jeff. As I said, Jacob and I talked quite a bit. I don't like being at the back of the line. I like to be up front. So if danger happens, also I don't like to be behind the slow people if anybody lags. So I like to be up front. And I was typically right behind Jacob when he was up front, or when David or Bob was up there. And I got to say, these guys are fantastic. They were great guides. They were great company, great companionship, and they were very curious about us as we were curious about them. So, I mean, I'd have to say that the guides made this as great a trip as anything. But we also had some really interesting characters, and without going into who all was on the trip and divulging people, because, you know, they're probably super secret squirrels, you know, and we don't want to do that. But one person we can definitely talk about was, we had a person that came on the trip who's a professional actor, and he's also a professional photographer. And oh my goodness, did that not come in handy? He was the most enthusiastic, energetic, bouncing all over the place, taking tens of thousands of photos. I'm probably not embellishing by saying tens of thousands. I took over 1,000 photographs, and I thought I took a lot, but he took a lot more. And that's Eric Bello. Eric Bello, who's performed on Good Girls, MacGyver, The Walking Dead. He's a professional actor. And I have to say, Jacob, I think that Eric's enthusiasm and his always can-do and his excitement really played a big element. But I mean, he wasn't alone, but he was really cool to have on a trip. What did you think about Eric?
Oh, he was awesome. Actually, when Eric showed up, we saw like his energy and enthusiasm. And I mean, he's a big guy. Like, he's built. And
he's buff.
Yeah, I looked at Joe. I was like, was this guy, like, was he a Green Beret? Or like, was he a SEAL? And Joe's like, no, he's just an actor. And,
he's just an actor.
But I mean, all right, that tracks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, he was sweet to have on the trip. I remember, like, when we got to the trailhead, this Eric, you know, he's got all of his photography equipment, and he had a backpack like this big with his photography equipment and like his iPad. And I was like, why are you bringing your iPad and like all these battery banks and everything? And he literally like had this massive backpack on and the small backpack in front of him. Yeah. And he was just ready to go, man. It was awesome.
He was, you know, and actually you're right. He's kind of a buff guy. Obviously he works out and takes care of himself. And he was definitely looked the part of a special operations guy out there. And I think everybody realized it, but he was definitely carrying a lot of weight, because I thought I had extra weight because I was carrying these extra battery packs because I plan on using my GoPro, which died on me. So I didn't have the GoPro. So all I could use was my phone. But I did carry these extra battery packs out there, and those things get heavy. But he had a professional camera, that awesome Sony he had, plus all this stuff, and that long tripod. And his rucksack was probably a little bit heavier than most of us, to say the least. But guy was never behind, never out of gas, never out of energy, always enthusiastic. I remember when you led us up the waterfall that day on the Saturday. We went up the waterfall. We got up. We took a spot where we stopped, kind of like, I'd say, about halfway up. We were probably about halfway up. We stopped there on a ledge overlooking. It was a good spot. And then Eric was not out of breath. He's running around, and I said, hey, can I do an impromptu cameo of you? He's like, yeah, let's do it right now. And so we just did a 2.5 minute interview right there, which I've played on the channel. It was fantastic. Yeah, he was, I mean, the whole group was great. Lots of fascinating guys, very accomplished people too, I'd have to say. Have to give credit to all my brethren out there. They were very accomplished, and it was a lot of fun that week. But the guides, you guys really made a big difference. Bob was great. Dave was fantastic. And yourself, I think really added a lot to the experience for us.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And it was cool to be able to go up to Green River Lakes. And, you know, for the viewers who don't know this area, it's just like you literally drive up to the Green River Lakes and you just have this amazing vista. Yeah. Right there. Yep. And that's exactly where we were hiking. But yeah, just being able to base camp in that area and have great conversations was amazing. And I mean, it was funny, like by the end of the trip, we had the Rangers who were like, Jacob, you need to go to Ranger school. And then like, actually, I don't know if I've told you this, Chris, but like we had some of the Rangers trying to recruit David and I by the end of the trip.
Oh, no, I saw it, especially at the mealtime. They were all over you guys. They were all over you.
For sure. Yeah. But then one of the SEALs came up and he's like, look, who are the people that talk the least? Like, who are the quietest in the group? And I was like, you, like X, Y, and Z. And he's like, who are the SEALs in the group? And I was like, the quietest guys. It's like, exactly.
Yeah. Well,
Oh man.
that's just Navy
So good.
envy of the Army. They can't help it. They're envious of the Army, so they're shy.
Yeah, right.
Now we have this rivalry between services, but let's see.
It's good
Yeah,
friendly competition.
no, it is absolutely. But what I should say, Jacob, is you just said the Green River Valley, but that's not where we're supposed to be. Let me frame this very quickly, and let's talk about this. So, ladies and gentlemen, so I think we were sold a bill of goods. We were told that we were going up and going through this hike and around and staying at these lakes and climbing up over 10,000 to about 13,000 feet through this pass. And I looked on the map, and it looked like there was a little bit of cell coverage at the high levels there based on the coverage for T-Mobile. So I've said, okay, great. GoPro, my phone, I'm going to record all this, make videos. I might be able to even try to do a live stream from up there. And we load up our rucksacks with 16,000 pounds of good. No, it's about 50 pounds. We load up the rucksacks. We saddle up. We ride up to 10,000 feet. We get to the trailhead. We park the vehicles. We climb out. We put our stuff on. We get our briefings, and we start hiking up the trail. We get 200 meters up the trail, and what do we see? Logs over the trail. Okay, no big deal. So I think Bob was in the lead then. He kind of went around it, and I'm like, that's no big deal. We went 10 more meters, logs. 50 meters, logs. Listen, Jacob, I lost count at about 8,000 down trees. I have never in my 55 years of life, having lived on 4 continents, and my childhood desire was to be a forest ranger, so you know how I feel about the forest. I have never seen, even in fires, even in massive fires in California where I lived or other places, I've never seen so many down trees as we saw there. It was astounding. So we went about I think about 3.5 miles roughly. That was the distance on the trail, but we probably traveled 7 miles through the woods to get those 3.5 miles because we were going above and below and walking like this. So let me ask you this question, Jacob. Have you ever seen anything like that yourself out there? You're out there all the time, 50, 70 trips a year.
No, sir. Yeah. I mean, there have been certain times when the trails are just not kept up, and it's like, yeah, the Forest Service hasn't been through this trail in 10 years, but that's never as bad as what we encountered. And we actually, so we came back, and Bob had a video of the downed trees, and all of the core staff was like, yeah, there's no way. Like, first of all, there's no way that was a windstorm. We think that it might, I mean, there aren't tornadoes in Wyoming, but we think that there might have been a legit tornado that came through and just ripped all those trees down. But it was insane. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
Well, that was actually my thought too, because I mean, the trees were ripped up by the roots, and they were healthy trees, not just dead trees. If it's wind, you'll get lots of dead trees falling over. But a lot of dead trees were still standing, and live, healthy trees, and we're talking about ones 5-6 feet around, were toppled, and the entire root base was dug up. So to me, it looked like some sort of funnel cloud or tornado, and I've unfortunately had lots of experience with tornadoes in my life, but it looked like some sort of tornado ripped through that ridge line, and for some unfortunate reason, it seemed to be along the trail for the most part, because if you look further aside, the trees weren't falling down. It's almost like nature decided to mess up our trip.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, when we got up and we decided to turn around, I don't know if you heard the people whistling back and forth to each other, but it was so thick that like they couldn't find each other. And I mean, I don't know who was up there during that windstorm, but that would be a bad place to be during that windstorm. That's crazy.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, Jacob, because I don't know if you had a chance, you must not have had a chance to talk to them, but when we came down the trailhead and we kind of hung out for a few minutes as people got their stuff together and we started loading our bags back up in the trailer, there was a couple that had come down who had been up there that night. And now we were supposed to go up the night before, for people who don't know, but COR made a very prudent decision, but because there was a storm coming in and the weather and the temperatures dropping, that they decided we would stay at the ranch for one more night. We were only supposed to be one night. We stayed a second night, and we didn't go out, which is probably a godsend that we didn't go out, Jacob, because the couple who were up, they were up in that storm the night before. They said they were terrified. It was like a freight train was coming and like a tornado and a hurricane all at once. They were afraid to go anywhere because trees were falling all around them. And of course, illumination was very low. So it's probably the best thing that they stayed put. But I mean, imagine with a dozen people out there spread out in 4 or 5 tents and those trees falling down, we would have probably lost somebody out there if we'd been out there that night.
Yeah, it would have been bad news. Yeah. And it just adds to this like real consequences, right? And I'm grateful that I get to learn how to make decisions with real consequences like that. But it's crazy. No.
Yeah, and we should let people know that the guides were responsible for what was going out there. Yes, a bunch of special forces guys, people knocking in doors, taking out terrorists, doing all kinds of things around the world. But it was these young kids who were responsible for the decisions in concert with their director, of course, and with the college. But they were making decisions all the time. And just, there was no mobile coverage, but they had a sat phone, and the sat phone worked because one of our group got ill and had to self-evac out of there, and made the call based on that. Plus, you guys made the call, I think, on the sat phone to make the decision to turn back. Because I remember when we stopped, it was really lovely kind of artificial grove where trees had fallen down, so it was kind of like an open grove there. We stopped, the sun was out, and I actually had a mobile signal. I sent a couple short videos while I was up there. I held my phone up kind of sideways and did a few videos for my subscribers. But what happened is you and David and Bob took off and went 3 different directions and tried to see if it was clearer ahead, because we're only like a half a mile, I think, from our first camping position. But there were also smaller groups of people who came up behind us, couples and 2 or 3 people, and they pushed on. They started coming back before you guys did because you went further, and they came back and they're just like shaking their head like, you can't get through. We tried, you can't get through. And you guys came back and they're like, no, ain't going to happen. So I will say this about everyone involved. I think everybody was a trooper because after marching all the way up that mountain for 3.5 miles and getting almost to where we're going to go, only to hear we're going to go back, and then thinking I got to go back down. Nobody complained. We just got back down there. We took it. That's a mission. We moved out. But that's the nature of soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for bearing with us. It's unforeseen circumstances. Yep.
So let me ask you this question, because
Yeah.
Jeff's got a question for you here. He says, Jeff says, does Jacob have any hobbies other than obviously outdoor activities?
That's a good question. So I was just talking to David about this the other day of like, I'd say 90% of the things that I do are related to the outdoors. Yeah. So what I do in my free time, if I'm not on a backpacking trip, usually I'm back in town. I'm either like reading, I'm in prayer with college students, or mountain biking. What are hobbies? I like to shoot archery. I like to play euchre. That is like a staple game at Wyoming Catholic College. So I don't know if you played it, but
no, that's an Army game. People in the Army, when they got downtime on exercises, play euchre all the time.
Really?
They play spades too, but euchre is a big thing in Ohio, and I grew up with euchre. Used to play euchre all the time, but I haven't played it in decades. But I love that game. I was pretty good at it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, just another reason why maybe I should go into the Army. I don't know. Yeah, no, that's those are kind of my hobbies, but most of my time is spent outside and just I enjoy it a lot. So climbing, mountain biking. In the winter, I do a lot of backcountry snowboarding, just in my free time, just to like get out, exercise, push myself. Yeah. So, but.
No, I think that of the 3 of you, of David, Bob, and you, I think you're the one that's most into mountain biking. Did I get that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, as I recall David saying that Jacob is an absolute monster when it comes to mountain bike. He says you're really, really into it.
I'm really into it. Yeah. So I never got into mountain biking until I came out to school. But I had during high school, I had a lot of like leg injuries through running. And so I stopped running for a while and I started doing road biking, and then I came out and like one of my friends just got me into it and I was hooked. Because biking, it's a great workout, and like I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie. And so I actually, as a student, I went on 4 consecutive fall break mountain biking trips. That was just like what I did. And I love it, like all over. I mean, Landier's a great place to ride. We go down to Moab all the time, ride like the whole enchilada is what it's called, like super iconic rides, Slick Rock, the Kokopelli Trail, Road 18, like all these trail, big trails in Colorado and Utah. So I'm way into it. Big advocate. Yeah.
Now, it's funny, Jacob, that you call yourself an adrenaline junkie, because you have picked up a hobby based on your outdoor activities, which to me is kind of the antithesis of adrenaline. And I have photographic evidence of you doing it, and that's fly fishing. You look like an enthusiastic fly fisher out there. That seems the opposite of adrenaline, but you seem to enjoy that a lot.
I do, yeah. And I recently got into that, actually. So we had an intern this summer who's now in the Western province with the Dominicans, California. and he got me into fly fishing. And so actually my grandpa originally taught me, but I don't know, it's just a great way to relax. And I was telling you actually, like, I mean, I don't catch that many fish, but I just love going out and casting and just trying my best. But
in the interest of full disclosure, Jacob, we had about 4 or 5 anglers who were doing the fly fishing. And for those who watched the video that I showed from the bridge below our campsite out there in the Green River Valley, there were about 65 trillion salmon in the creek there, or stream. And the interest of full disclosure, after 4 days of fishing there, or 3 days, I think one person caught 1 fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the flies that were in use weren't the right ones. But the irony is, and the comeuppance is that this gentleman and his son and daughter-in-law rocked up, and they dropped their fly fishing out there, and in 20 minutes walked away with these 4 huge salmon, and everyone else been fishing for days. Everyone's like, "What the heck's going on here?" They used a red lure, and suddenly we switched to red lures.
Well, literally so there was that bridge in construction, and one of them, like, as they're walking over the bridge, grabbed a piece of the red ribbon that they were using for construction, and literally just put that on a hook and caught a fish on it. Meanwhile, we're like trying to like mess around with all these different flies, and I was so bummed.
But it was quite amazing. So, it was interesting, Jacob, you went to set up the bear fence that night when we got to that campsite. And you said it had to be like 200 yards from the campsite. And we're walking, and I'm like, that's 200 yards. You're like, no, not yet. And we set it up in that first night. And I'm like, okay, I thought that was far enough. The next day, the fence is down the hill, the backside of the mountain, down in this little gully and ravine. I'm like, that's like 600 yards. But you guys relocated, I think, to a much better spot. I think a lot of people are fascinated to hear about the bear fence. But you put anything out there that smells remotely like anything a bear might be interested in, you're going to want to put it out there in a bear fence, yes?
Yeah. So that's a big tool for us. And actually the reason we moved it is not because it wasn't far enough away. It was that we set it up on a slab of granite.
Yeah.
And so when we went to get a ground, like we couldn't get a ground, but basically, like, for the viewers, it's an electric fence that's, I don't know, maybe it maybe has like a 10-foot diameter or so. And so it's an electric fence that's portable that you can carry with like a little battery. And I'll put all your food in it, put a tarp on it, and it's kind of like a cattle fence or something, where like the more grounded you are, the bigger shock you get, the more voltage. So we set this up, and the bears, when they come up to it, you can imagine, like, they're grounded on all fours with a wet nose, and they come up to this thing like smelling stuff, and they hit the bear fence, and it shoots them back, like a full-size bear just shoots them back. And we've actually, I mean, it works, because one night we were in camp and we were like sitting down around a campfire doing a debrief, and all of a sudden we hear a loud pop up the hill where our bear fence was. And we go up to this bear fence where all of our food was, and we didn't see a bear, but what we did see was just a steaming pile of bear poop, like right next to the bear fence. We're like, oh, thank goodness we set it up and turned it on, and oh.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So that begs a question. So we were out there for a week, but you have these ones that the college does, and COR takes the groups out there for the college for 21 days. Obviously, these people aren't carrying 21 days worth of food, because, I mean, that would just be so much. So before you answer that question, I'm guessing that they're not stalking elk and they're not hunting grizzly bear out there. So how are they doing food? Are you caching food, or do you deliver new spots? Do they link up with you? How does that work for 3 weeks?
Yeah, so we do what's called re-rations on the longer trips. So basically, like 10 days, the max amount of food that we can carry reasonably. So on that trip, we'll carry a week's worth of food. And then we have a group of horsebackers come in with like our next week's food ration, and like whatever batteries, hand sanitizer, soap, anything else that we need, we can like call in on the satellite phone and say, hey, we need this thing, like Johnny's backpack broke, we need a new backpack. And so they bring all that out, and then from a trailhead, and then they just go back out to the trailhead. But that's how we do our re-rations, and we stock up. I mean, re-ration days are like, they are the best days. You get there and you get letters from family and like candy and new food, and it's awesome. It's so cool. And it's really the first sign of civilization that you see for for a week. So yeah, but it works well.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I was just want to make sure that our viewers know we're not hunting grizzly bear or stalking elk. Although I was stalking elk and ran into something quite unexpected, which we won't share on this stream. But I think you know what that was. But anyway,
I know exactly what
you know exactly what that was, and it was really bad because I had my selfie stick, which I use as a tripod, with the camera on, and I was actually about to record when I ran into that, and I'm like, no, we don't want to record that. But folks, you're listening to Chris White Africa on the Indaba Africa channel. I'm Chris here, live in central Pennsylvania. My special featured guest today is Jacob Ramaekers, who's out in Wyoming, near the Wind River Range. He's a graduate of Wyoming Catholic College, a recent graduate here this year, 2020, the year that seems to be one that we're going to want to forget in so many respects. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to want to forget my adventure and my experience out there with Jacob and Bob and David and Wyoming Catholic College, because it just rocked. It was amazing. But speaking of civilization, now there was a snafu because I was busy doing other things, and I don't think I turned in my paperwork in time for the kit to be set up for me. So when I got there, I had no ruck. I had to piece it all together, and I think Carl showed up and he helped me put it together, but I was kind of frazzled trying to get it all done because I mentioned the day before, and I don't think people understood what I was making, is that I see 3 bags here for people that didn't come with rucksacks, but I don't see one for myself, and I don't think that sunk in. So while I'm scrambling, the discussion is going on about who carries the communal food and who's got this bag and who's got that, and apparently it was a discussion about Jolly Ranchers. And I thought somebody was joking about Jolly Ranchers, but no, people chose to leave the Jolly Ranchers behind, and for that, I will never forgive them. Now, the good news is that David had some, and it was a godsend for me because I'm a sugar junkie, and after about 4 days out there, I saw he had Jolly Ranchers, and I kind of looked over kind of envious and like, gosh, I thought that was a joke. You mean there really are Jolly Ranchers? Sure, Chris, would you like one? Yes, thank you, David. But next time, I will have lots of pokey bait. I don't care what my rucksack weighs because I will definitely carry all the little things like the Jolly Ranchers and the beef jerky that I would prefer to have with me.
Oh, it's yeah, for sure. Yep. Bring your kitchen sink. You'll be eating well, but your knees will hurt, right?
Exactly. Well, speaking of eating well, I just do have one suggestion for COR. Listen, the chicken teriyaki was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. But I think it's time to retire the pizza menu. That was horrific.
What? Tell me about your pizza experience. Ours went well.
I think that we have an integrity violation here, Jacob. I don't believe yours went well. I saw you guys smiling, but I don't buy that. I saw the food. No, but seriously, so Joe made the pizza for us, and of course the father, the Catholic priest, was ill, so he wasn't with us because he was part of our smaller group to cook. So it was just Joe and I, and Joe led the way cooking, and he did his best job. But the dough was too thick in the frying pan, and it just didn't. So when you bit into it, it was like chewing on dough. It was like I don't know. It was so I didn't want to hurt Joe's feelings, so I ate it. It was vile. It was terrible, but I ate it, and Joe's like, "Oh, okay, great." And I didn't realize that I probably should have been more honest with Joe, because then he followed a similar pattern and made just as awful pizza for himself. And when he ate it, he's like, "This is terrible." And so then David was over there making this like little snack, putting cinnamon and honey, and he's like, "Here, have some." And I'm like, and I love sugar, so I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And I walked away. I was like, "Oh, this is terrible too," but I don't want to let him know. So I think it's maybe time to retire the pizza, because that stuff weighs plenty. We could probably come up with a second teriyaki meal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it all depends on how hungry you are, right?
Well,
and you could be creative, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the pizza. I mean, I will say, like, making pizza in the backcountry is one of the harder things to do, because like make the dough and make the sauce and fry the pepperoni, and it's just such a like process. But we have made other creative things with the pizza mix, though. Okay. We've made cinnamon rolls, we've made dumplings, we made like a couple other things, but golly, pizza.
Yeah, no, that was the low light of the entire trip, I must say, was that pizza.
But obviously followed by the highlight of our game later that night, right?
Oh, I wasn't going to raise that topic, you guys, so I played hard to get. The first night actually went, and actually I have no regrets, because the first night several of us went down. One person was not feeling well, but we went down, about 4 of us I think went down, and we didn't participate in the campfire games. There was no campfire because we had fire restrictions, but I'll call it a campfire game. We went down to the creek bed, and the father was sitting down there reading, I think, some scripture or something like that along the river. And I sat down just to kind of chill and decompress. and several guys were trying their hands at fly fishing as the sun was getting close to coming down. And I hear a bunch of splashing, and I've been joking with these guys. I'm like, just jump in the water and fish, just grab them. There's so many salmon, you're bound to catch one. So I actually thought that for a second somebody wandered out in the water because they were frustrated, because you hear this splash, splash, and then you hear this, shh, guys. And I was about 100 meters from the bridge down river. And I look up, and so I went up there, and I got on the bridge, and there were moose crossing the river. And so I missed the first one because it was a juvenile. It got across, was already in the bushes on the other side. But I saw two cows coming through, and they're wading through. And I'm like, get the camera out. I'm recording this, get the video of the moose. And all of a sudden I hear this. And I'm like, it's a bull moose. It's a bull moose. And we couldn't see him. He was still in the woods trailing them. And he came out, and he just deliberately walked across. So no regrets. That was a fantastic experience. We wouldn't have caught that on film if I hadn't come down there and got it. So that was pretty cool. But the second night, you guys are like, if you didn't play last night, you have to play tonight. So I played hard to get, but I was going to be a team player. So I came over, and I was kind of reluctant to play. But Jacob, who won that game?
Chris, you won that game. And from my end, just for your viewers, Chris. So we were like, everybody has to play this game. Like it's a stupid game, but it's so much fun.
It's fun.
And so Chris comes over, and he's like, I don't want to play this stupid game. And like, why are we playing this dumb game? And I heard people playing it last night. And he sits down, and he's like, how do I get out of this game? Literally like 10 minutes into this game. Like, it's the dumbest thing. You're literally just going, psh, psh, meow, and like all over the place. And Chris, 10 minutes in, is just like killing everybody and just having a blast, like on the ground, first of all. That was my highlight. Like seeing a bunch of Special Operation Forces veterans play a child game.
Well, and
so thank you for doing it.
No, it was great. It was great. It was fantastic. It's great you guys did it. But in the interest of full disclosure, you said I was killing it, but actually, two of the strikes against me were self-confessed errors. I mean, nobody even saw it. I'm like, okay, I messed up. If I had been dishonest, I'd have like cleaned the table. But I mean, but it was still kind of cool. It was a lot of fun. But in the end, we had. Was it David that was left because you were out? David, and a Navy SEAL and I. And actually, that was the easiest part. I have to tell you, Jacob, because we were sitting in a triangle, and I had one to the left, one to the right. All I had to do was keep my hands in the lap and just not flinch, and just I could see both of them simultaneously. Unlike where you have to look left and right to see people. And so that people are like this because everybody was laughing because we were going so fast, doing this stuff like that. And for me, that was the easiest part. The hardest part for me was when Joe was sitting next to me, because Joe would just start laughing. And I didn't know if when he was laughing, he said psh to me, or he said meow, or if he was pointing the other way. It was hilarious, though.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't get this hat as a consequence of my victory. I did buy this. And speaking of which, you guys can support COR if you like. And let's do a quick transition, Jacob, while we get a little bit of time left here before you take off. Sure. You mentioned something. You're now gainfully employed. Not that you weren't gainfully employed, but you're now full-time employed with COR. That's Catholic Outdoor Renewal Expeditions, for those who don't understand the acronym, because it should be new to most people. But now you're full-time. But unlike a lot of people who work, say, at Wendy's or work at Walmart or Lowe's or work at some government office, I don't think you have a set salary. I think your salary is now in the future determined by how successful you are at fundraising. Did I get that right? Or maybe?
Yep, that is correct. Yep.
All right. So what does that mean? So you've got to fundraise. So does that mean you have to go out and sell people on the program, or get donors to donate money to cover the costs so that people can pay less to do the trip?
Yeah. So it's actually kind of a cool part of our ministry. Since we don't like charge so much for trips, I fundraise for myself. So right now I'm actually just beginning a campaign to fundraise my entire salary. So I'm looking for monthly donors, and people who are just stoked on the mission. Like I want ministry partners. And so the point of it is like, I'm not getting paid per trip, but when I have monthly supporters who love the vision, who love the mission, who want to get people into the backcountry, they can actually come and support me as a missionary. You just go to corexpeditions.org and go to like the donate page. You can donate to a specific fund. You can donate to like me monthly, yearly, etc. And that's just how I'm going to be making it for the next couple of years at least. But I'm really looking forward to it. Basically, I'm just going to going to go back home, and I'm going to be talking to all my family, friends at home, spreading the mission, spreading the word about COR, but also getting support for my own ministry, and what the Lord's called me to do. So yeah, I'm excited.
So let me get this straight, Jacob, in case anybody who's listening wants to help out, or if they have a way to help out. So if they go to corexpeditions.org, they'll find something about how to help, how to support. And now, is there a way they can specifically contribute to you if they're really excited about your ministry or your efforts out there? Can they do that, specifically designate for you, or is it just generally go to the whole group, or how's it work?
Yep. So you go to there's like a donate page, and you can go and you can choose a fund.
Okay.
And you can say, I want to support Jacob Ramaekers, or I want to support Bob Milligan, who is also another instructor on our trip, or David Carey, and say, like, this is the person that I want to specifically contribute to. That would go directly to me and to like what my living costs are, basically. So that, when I come back from the field, I'm not broke. But yeah, that's kind of the idea. And that goes towards like what I need to be comfortable and what I need to do my ministry properly. Like gear that I need for being in the field, and food when I'm back in town, and rent, etc. So, yep.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. That's so that people know that. What I'll do is after the stream, before the weekend's over, I'll go back and add that to the description, the specific links, in case people want to help out, if they want to contribute to what's going on there. No worries. I'll be happy to do that. Listen, there's a few comments I want to get in here from the chat before we wrap up. So the first was from Paulie Fire. Paulie is a firefighter. Hence the name Paulie 7 Fire.
Nice.
He's a firefighter in South Africa, and he said, seriously scenic area from everything you've shown us thus far, Chris, on the channel since you got back. Yeah, I've been showing a lot of videos that I've done, especially of Square Top Mountain. That last night before we left, when I was out stalking the elk, which turned out not to be elk, I did several 5-minute video clips on my mobile, and I've been airing those, and they're all very serene and quiet with Square Top Mountain from different angles, all across, some framed by trees, some straight on, some with the lake, and people really enjoyed this, plus the moose and the salmon and things like that. So people really enjoyed that. But I mean, that's just one little tiny fraction of the amazing beauty that's out there, isn't it, Jacob? It's just such a wonderful place.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work in the most beautiful locations, and it's my backyard, really. Getting up there is a 40-minute drive to get to the Wind River Range from Lander. So it's amazing. Yeah. Yeah,
but that would be the Wind River Range part that's near where all those trees were down. So I'm going to pass on that part of the Wind River Range for a while.
Totally. Yep.
It's going to take those rangers with the onset of winter coming. By the way, folks, we had snow the first night when we stayed at the ranch. We had some flurries, and there was snow on the ground. That's how wicked that storm was in early September. But I think the rangers are going to take a long time to clear all of that. I don't want to say brush, but all those logs off the trail. That's going to take, and that was just the 3.5 miles that we saw. So I feel for them.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
I talked to one of the forest rangers on the phone, and he said it might take years.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I mean, unless you brought an army of scouts out there to help out or something like that, or bring the actual army out there with chainsaws and axes.
Yeah, right.
That might get it done. Maybe some reservists. We can get the Wyoming National Guard out there, give them something to do on a weekend.
Yeah.
So a Viking Boar says, if I could have my life over, I would love to do what Jacob is doing. And if I have half your knowledge, great respect. Wow, for both of us. Well, thank you on my behalf. And I think Jacob will probably thank you too. That's very kind of you, Viking Boar.
Yeah, thank you, Viking Boar.
And then Erica says she always has a good chuckle when I tell the elk story. So and Erica also said that Jacob is living by faith. That's a tough one, that one. It's absolutely, Jacob. It seems like your life is guided by faith, and it's very strong in you, and you're proud and not shy to share it.
Absolutely.
Lynn says she would love to contribute. Jacob is a very, she says integrous, but I think she means a young man full of integrity. That's brilliant. So Jacob, I'd like to invite you back on. We'll talk about some more adventures sometime if you'd like to do that down the road, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. There's a delay in the video, so I like he's mulling over like, oh my gosh, he's going to ask me to come back now. No, but anyway, so listen. We've talked about a lot of stuff here today, about our trip, about what you guys do in general, your experience at Wyoming Catholic College, about your family. But is there anything you'd like to share with people of any topic that comes in mind before we close out the stream? Because people are listening.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, I can always put in a plug for COR, but get outside and just, yeah, if you're near the mountains, get out to the mountains. You can do it. We picked up and did a very quick plan change and got out to a beautiful area. So get out there and please keep me in your prayers as I start this next chapter, working full time. And it was great to be able to speak in front of you all. So thank you for watching.
Well, Jacob, thanks a lot. I have a mission failure here. Remember before we started, I said I was going to put the COR banner up for the stream. I got so into the conversation with you that I only remembered it about a minute ago. So I've just put it up, but I promise next time. And also, we want to speak to your director. We'd like to get him on. And of course, I'll put it up for that so he can tell us more about the organization so people can get more of a COR-centric discussion. I know you wanted to talk, you wanted to share a lot about COR, but I'd ask you if we could focus a lot about you because this was about your experiences. But COR came out in this. We talked a lot about COR in this conversation. But thanks a lot, Jacob. It's been a great experience having trekked through the woods with you and playing and making horrible pizza in the woods, erecting bear fences, marching on the up and down mountains when we could have gotten a canoe and had a much easier journey from one side of the lake to the other. But I really enjoyed the experience. And also, thank you so much for coming to the channel. Listen, I got to tell folks, when I was out there, Jake was asking me about what I was doing and asking about the channel, and he's curious about it. And I said, I'd like to interview you. And it wasn't even a microsecond. He said, sure, I'd love to come on. That'd be great. Some people are like, maybe, I don't know, and then want to go check out and make sure what your channel is all about. But I've been talking about my channel, and Jacob's like, yeah, that sounds good. Less than a microsecond, just tenths of a second. He's like, absolutely. And so you've been a great guest, Jacob. You're my second guest today, and I've enjoyed this thoroughly. So good luck. You're welcome. Good luck with what's going out there, folks. If you do want to support Jacob and COR, you can go to their website. I think I do have the website in the description down there, and you can find the donate. But I'll also put direct links in there so that it's easier for people after the stream to go back and find that. And Jacob, God bless. Thanks a lot. You're fantastic. I don't know if I'm coming back next year, if I'll be invited to come back next year to help out. But if I do, I think one of the highlights for me will be if you're involved because it rocked. It was really awesome to be out there with you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I look forward to hopefully being on the channel more and sharing more adventures with you guys.
No, that would be absolutely brilliant. Okay, I'm going to put you in the waiting room, Jacob, then I'm going to close up my stream. If you don't mind hanging around for a few minutes in the waiting room, I'll get back with you afterwards, okay?
Okay, great.
All right, folks, that's Jacob Ramaekers there, who is a outdoor guide and a missionary with COR Expeditions. And my window looks really funky. Let me fix it here real quick. There we go, folks. Now it looks right. Okay, so that's Jacob. Whoops, messed it up again. Sorry about that. That's Jacob. And we talked about COR, Catholic Outdoor Renewal. We talked about Wyoming Catholic College, of which he's a graduate, a recent graduate. And we also talked about his life growing up in Nebraska, what it's like to be in Wyoming, and then, of course, our trip out there, which was epic, ladies and gentlemen. It was fantastic. It was lots of fun. Arduous. I don't know if for soft veterans, if it was arduous, but it was challenging in some ways. I mean, we're talking about Special Operations Forces veterans who are in their 40s and 50s and older for the most part, not in their teens and 20s, and life's a bit different. Ron says, now Jacob as a missionary has left. I suggest we start the moose video right now. Funny guy. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. I will not have a Night Owls edition of Stray Voltage tonight because this fills that time slot for today. I appreciate all of you here, and please spread the word about this video and let others know about it. And it falls kind of right in line with my outdoor videos, including the previous one with Citizen Guardian talking about survivalism. So I hope that you enjoyed it. I think Jacob is a wonderful young man, and he was a great companion out there on the trip. It's always nice to have people that are curious about you. It keeps you engaged when you're carrying around a rucksack, which you haven't done for a few months or a few years, and it's weighing down on your hips or on your shoulders, and you're walking out there and you're thinking, did I make the right decision coming out here? And then you get this, so Chris, what was it like doing this? And you get engaged, and it's a lot of fun. It was a fantastic experience. All right, Jacob, thank you so much. Audience, thank you so much. I'm going to close out here. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow. My guest tomorrow is supposed to be Man Patria at noon Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. in Botswana in South Africa, 5 p.m. in Windhoek, London, and Abuja, folks. That's tomorrow. Man Patria, it's set up. I have to get confirmation from him, but hopefully he'll show up because that was the plan for tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening, I may have Jeremy Nell from germ warfare on. He might be on tomorrow night. I'm waiting to get confirmation on that. If Jeremy Nell will be on for my evening stream tomorrow, and then we'll have 2 guests tomorrow. So that should be pretty cool. I'll let you know if I have Jeremy Nell on. But folks, that'll be kind of cool, kind of epic to talk to him. He was on Joe Emilio's program today, and we had talked about him becoming the program. So we'll see if he's on tomorrow. Sunday, AF Branco, Tony Branco, the political cartoonist, political satirist, who is just absolutely amazing and brilliant, is my guest on Sunday. Monday, ladies and gentlemen, Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, the Canadian political hopeful and former 700 Club host, as well as television personality, conservative Christian, will be on my program Monday. On Tuesday, I'll have Joe Stong from Wyoming Catholic College. On Wednesday, I will have Mimi Kalinda from the media group in South Africa, talking about changing the narrative on Africa. And then next week, on Friday, I believe it is, Wyatt du Toit, the retired South Africa Defense Force officer who was a prisoner of war in Angola, will be on the channel by demand, popular demand. People have been asking for me to get him on for weeks and months, and I've been trying to get him. He's on the channel. So thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you next time here on Chris Wyatt Africa. It's a lekker Freitagnacht, and I almost want to go live just so I can play Giselle singing Borjo, so you can hear that it's a lekker Freitagnacht. But we're not going to do that tonight. So God bless, and have a wonderful weekend, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you right back here next time. Thank you for your support for the channel. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for the subscriptions. Thank you for the super chats. And for those of you who are paying members to support the channel, thank you for that as well. But whatever your role is, you're a subscriber, you're a pop-in viewer, you are a paying member, I appreciate all the support. It makes it worthwhile, and it makes this a much more enjoyable experience. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, God bless. Have a good evening. Enjoy your lekker Freitagnacht. The day after Heritage Day in South Africa. Have a lovely weekend for those in South Africa. Those of you around the world, whether it's Taiwan, Thailand, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Honduras, Somalia, the warm heart of Africa, in Mali, or right here in the United States. God bless and have a good weekend. We'll catch you next time, folks. And as Big Daddy Liberty says, never trust a commie. As Chris Wyatt says, never trust an ANC cadre. Take care, folks. Oops, hang on. I messed up there. Got videos playing, but my screen is still on. Okay, so let's try it again. There we go. Never trust a cadre.